That's how Rock was reportedly when he was there. I didn't work there when he was there, but on movie sets, my wife's done a movie with him. That's how Dwayne's always been too, man.
I'm on a crusade. I've been on a crusade my whole career to try to find somebody who can just tell me like one sort of bad story about Dwayne Johnson.
Okay,
I can't. Do you? Because I just want to hear like one time he didn't hold the door for me. He slammed it in my face by accident. I need something.
He hurt my grandma's feelings.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be funny.
Subscribe!
All right, man. This is a big one for me, dude. I feel like I'm 36. I feel like anybody anybody in my age range, you're one of those dudes. You are that guy, man. You're up there for one of those, like, when you're having conversations, like, if you could switch lives with one guy, who would it be? Freddie Prinze Jr. is up there, dude.
Nah, but there had to be a moment where there was some hate too, because you didn't want to see another rom-com and your girl drug you to it anyway. So come on. Be real.
You couldn't be possibly more wrong.
This is the wrong show for that. Like 9 times out of 10, you get a couple guys from Barstool Sports. It's like, yeah, man, fuck those movies and chicks. We're like, oh my God, Matthew McConaughey movies are great. How those guys engaged? So,
Freddie, I was doing research as we do. I was just doing a little research. And I was just curious where Summer Catch was filmed, because I'm on my way to Martha's Vineyard right now, who has a Cape League team, and I in the research of finding out where Summer Catch was filmed in North Carolina, Greensboro,
North Carolina, Wilmington.
At that moment, I learned it wasn't a beloved movie because I fucking love that movie.
Okay, so this is the weirdest thing with this movie. So once a year, MLB Network plays it, and all of a sudden, once a year, my Twitter will blow up with like random dudes literally saying, fuck that movie, fuck that guy, he sucks, this and that. And then like 1 out of every 30 of those like random mentions, I don't know why they mentioned me, but right on, there'll be one guy like, hey man, fuck you guys, I like that movie. And it's the weirdest. It's the weirdest. You guys appreciate
It's totally fine. You know, I'm not saying it's on my Mount Rushmore movies, but it's a great, baseball dating hot chick flick, whatever.
I always feel bad when people talk to me because I'm like, yo, man, I'll be honest, I haven't seen it. So I don't.
You never even watched it.
I've seen 3 things I've done in my whole life.
What have you seen? What are the 3?
There was a little independent movie I made
called
The House of Yes with Parker Posey, which is so creepy and weird. It's a dark comedy. You will laugh unless your parents are there. But it's really gross and creepy, and they joke about incest, and it's weird. I'm telling you right now, it's weird.
All right.
I saw that. I did another independent movie called that Terrence Winter wrote, the guy from Sopranos and Boardwalk Empire. It was about his life, and it was called, they changed the name of it. It was called I'm Nailed Right In, which they thought stood for the INRI on the Jesus crucifix.
Oh wow, that's that's a bit.
They changed that one.
They changed it. I think they changed the title to Brooklyn Rules or something like that.
I was gonna say that. To me, that's one of those like, okay, INRI. How can we do it? I nailed right in. All right, there we go. Then we can say it's on the crucifix. All right, so those 2, and the third one.
2, and I saw I Know You Did Last Summer. I went to.
I was gonna say you had to have seen that.
I didn't see the second one though. I heard I looked kind of buff in the second one, so I had to figure out what I was doing back then.
Dude, I just saw I Know You Did Last Summer because scary movies scare me. So
yeah, but it's not scary.
I know, like you are a colossal pussy if you're afraid of. I Know You Did Last Summer.
Yeah, like James Wan destroyed I Know You Did Last Summer franchise with Saw and every other psychotic, crazy movie. The horror genre evolves quicker than any other form of movie, right? Like faster than comedies, action. Like we still watch the same action movies that our grandparents were watching. It's just got more computer animated stuff in there, but it's the same friggin' movie. But horror has to constantly outdo itself. Kind of like wrestling when it went to death matches and Extreme. It was like, how far can we go? I'll wrestle you on the Empire State Building and throw you out. Like you didn't know how far it would go. But that horror is in a similar field. It constantly has to outdo itself.
That's one where because I just saw it and I wasn't scared of it, but I was avoiding it. Not avoiding it. I just you
were scared. You were crying like a little baby. It's fine.
But I realized that the whole premise, watching it now in my older age, not the whole premise, but the whole plot hinges on the idea that sober drivers couldn't exist. Like, so like driving soberly isn't a thing. Because like you were sober.
You'll never believe us.
Like you were sober, and they're like, call the police, and they're like, they won't believe me. They'll never believe I was driving the car.
The moral of the story is never have a designated driver. It's like having a dad with 4 kids. They're constantly like, look, hey, shut up back there. You better keep your mouth shut. Never have a designated. Just make sure you're hammered.
Those movies though, man, because I wouldn't call them a horror movie, but it's like a slasher flick. But
that's
like,
not cool, man. It was a horror movie. You see what that son of a bitch James Wan has done? At
the time it was. Yeah, you're right.
You're talking about it like it's a comedy. Like
I'm not
mad at you.
Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer have this spot in my heart where it was scary, but it was also like cool, and there was cool kids in it, and you know what I mean. It wasn't just like
Scream had the inside humor going.
Yeah. Scream's very meta.
I felt Scream really separated itself from everything because it was kind of telling jokes on itself while you were watching, and I loved it for that. I loved the scene in I Know What You Did Last Summer when she's like in the rant. We're out here. What do you want? I'm right here. It's just like, this is amazing. I love this. A GIF. People hit me with that GIF or GIF. It's GIF.
Yep.
And they hit me with that all the time, man, with the rain and the boobs and the circle. Yeah, everybody loves that, man.
Do you think those count as high school movies too, like teen movies?
I think they got
That's what I mean. Right? It's like a coming of age kind of, you know?
Yeah, they're everything. They're like
every generation has those. It's pretty people with problems. Like that's all Friday the 13th was. That's all those are, man.
What I love about that time too, like late, I guess maybe it was, when did that come out? Late 90s or mid 90s?
Mid-90s? No.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe
somewhere 96, 97, somewhere.
Right. So that 96, 97, late 90s into early 2000s for me was movies like that and wrestling. Like the Attitude Era. Yeah, I maintain
your generation loves it. Loves it.
I swear to God, I would call the WWF Attitude Era, I think, is the most entertaining thing that has ever existed. Movies, music, TV, the script writing, the storylines, the actual wrestling, the characters that came out of it. It birthed, The Rock and Stone Cold. I mean, to me, it's like this was the greatest thing that has ever been put together. It's amazing.
So your generation is literally who the Attitude Era was created for, right?
Right.
I'm in the minority where I did not enjoy it as much. Now, I'll acknowledge this. We could debate this the whole show if you want. I love talking wrestling. So I'll give you this. The stars they produced, forget it, okay?
Yeah. Unparalleled.
They say, never say that no one will surpass this person because someone always does. That's not happening. Okay, right. No one's surpassing The Rock and Stone Cold.
It's not happening.
And the matches were phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal. However, those storylines made me stop watching wrestling for a while, man. Like it came off so, and this is a guy saying that the 80s weren't goofy. It came off so goofy to me.
What was goofy? It was serious. It was hardcore. What are you talking about, goofy? Fuck you.
The man who would choke his opponents with a sock on his hand? Are you saying this is goofy?
Oh, God, I love
hardcore shit, man. Don't you dare speak ill of that.
By the way, the first time I met Mankind, I felt so bad. I had never met him before. I was meeting all these wrestlers for the first time, and I went up to him, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's so great to meet you. I love you. I just met Ric Flair, too. And I guess he had major beef with Ric Flair, and he just walked away. And I was like, oh, damn it. I love you, Mankind. I wanted to talk to you. Never mind. But so my issue with it was when I was growing up watching it back in my day, you would book people for a year, and the stories were slow and drawn out. Mm-hmm. And when the Attitude Era came out, and by their own admission, it was inspired by Jerry Springer and that talk show kind of reality TV, sure. which I also was not a fan of. I've never watched an episode of Jerry Springer in my life. So,
Mr. Highbrow.
I'm with you, Freddie Prinze.
Are you kidding? I watch professional wrestling. Don't call me highbrow.
You're telling me you don't want to watch Mae Young give birth to a hand that was Mark Henry's father was the father? Are you kidding me? What's wrong with
Exactly.
That was so weird, dude. That was some shit. That was like
so weird.
Was that a hand?
I don't want to see Rikishi in prosthetics. I don't want to see. To
what about
me,
Kai and Tai chopping off Val Venus's penis? Well, that was cool. Choppy, your pee-pee.
By the way, I always liked Val Venus.
Yeah.
I felt like Val Venus was a way underrated guy, man.
He's a good wrestler. He could fly,
man. And his gimmick, I know, was R-rated, and they were getting ready to go PG, but still, there's room for a little PG-13 in there.
Even if you don't have, so whatever, that's fine. You don't, the Attitude Era is not your cup of tea. Do you like the way that it's gone, like, so kid friendly? Like, I feel like wrestling needs to inherently have some sex and some violence and some
here's where kids. Here's where your argument, I think, holds more weight, right? Professional wrestling wasn't started for kids.
Right.
It was real. They thought it was real. It was adults. It was grown-ups going. They would get drunk and get mad and want to fight the heel at the end of the match. It's inherently, by its very definition, a combat sport, and it should be watched by adults. Right. But as it's evolved and it's had its ups and its downs, and by far the Attitude Era, by any metric, is the most successful as far as ratings, money. People like Vince Russo made the company more money than Jim Cornette would have made them forever. And that's what pisses Cornette off. Right. But a lot of what Jim Cornette says, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty dead on. But his ideas didn't earn as much money. And I think that's why he gets kind of hot about it. Mm-hmm. But I agree with more of Jim's stuff than I do Vince's stuff. Mm-hmm. So, as far as what they produced wrestling wise and star wise, that won't be matched. As far as the product today, I'm like a lot of people. I'm just looking for one match or one segment that I love. I'm just looking for one. If I get more than that, that's gravy. But there's times where I don't even get one damn segment that I love. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I understand people's frustrations. I thought NXT was the best show on WWE, and then they made these changes. Look, I'm 45. I'm old enough to remember you can't do that on television, on Nickelodeon. And that, to me, is not cool. Like, I haven't watched it since they went splatter paint. I'm literally waiting for wrestlers to open lockers and be like, "Hey, Alexander," and then close the door again. You guys are too young for that show, but that was like a sketch comedy kids show.
Right. I know what you mean. That corniness. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm not vibing with that. I don't always like the way they book, but anybody who worked there will tell you I couldn't book for shit when I worked for WWE. Mm-hmm. I was just a really good writer. I could write you a speech. They call it a promo. We call it a monologue. I could write you something that will make people give a shit about who you are. If you couldn't do it and we didn't have enough time, then what I wrote was shit. But if you did connect to it and we did have enough time, then what I wrote was good. But my job, no matter what, was to try and get you over if you're the wrestler. So the first thing I would say, I was raised by a bunch of psycho martial artists in Southern California: Bob Wall, Chuck Norris, Gene LaBelle, Pat Burleson. Like, they all became my dad when my dad died because they were training him because he wanted to learn how to fight. And so I like criticism. I don't shy away from it. And I literally would say, like, what do you think? And if they didn't like it, I'd be like, all right, we got to rewrite this because you're going live in 25 minutes. And so, we would sit down. People give me a lot of love for the Jeff Hardy stuff. But if you look at the first promo he and I did together, it wasn't good.
No.
When I wrote it, I was like, damn, that's the shit. Because I was like, he was going through a lot of public stuff with drug addiction and things like that. Yeah. And I'm like, my dad went through that. I've had, however many years, 30 some years to make my dad a sympathetic character. I can make him one too. And so I took away the black and the white of society and I focused on that gray area. And I made Jeff a sympathetic character who was literally going through drug addiction and battling that shit. So I could do that. But if you were like, hey, Freddie, put together, this week's matches, it would have been the worst show you've ever seen in your life. Right. I don't know how to do that. And Freebird knew that and knew what my strengths were. And I told him at a certain point, I was like, stop giving me these booking assignments, man. I'm shit at this. I was like, tell me who you want to fight and I'll get you there. And so that's how I started to get some traction in that company and a little bit of momentum.
And was that like, does acting and that cross over at all? Or was that like, it's like storytelling and, conveying,
Yeah, storytelling. But the second time I went there, Vince asked me to come back to run. We were at SummerSlam in LA before they took it away from us. And I was just going to visit and I was down ringside and Vince was there and he's like, come over here, and takes the headset off. They were rehearsing stuff. and throws his big old meat hook around me. He looks like RoboCop. His body looks like this armored shell of RoboCop, right? I used to call him that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what's that? I'm like, you haven't seen RoboCop? You haven't seen RoboCop?
Wait, wasn't that one of his famous things? Like he doesn't watch, but he's never seen movies.
He doesn't know why you wouldn't just watch wrestling. He doesn't know why.
That's all that man does. He lives and breathes it.
I was watching Richard Pryor live on a Sunset Strip on a jet one time, flying from Cleveland back to New York. And he's like, why the fuck are you watching that? I'm like, this is Richard fucking Pryor. What are you talking about? Well, why didn't you watch the match? I'm like, I was there. We just saw it. I don't need to watch it again. So anyway, I'm down ringside and Vince is like this. He should have a PhD in psychology, right? Because he just knows people. And he knows I didn't grow up with that. He knew I grew up without a father. I'd already worked in the company once. And he throws an arm around me and he says, man, we could really use you back here, son. And he called me son.
Yeah.
That's like kryptonite to a dude who doesn't have a dad.
I was going to say, that's playing dirty, man. That's
dirty.
Like,
and you can do it.
If he said that to me, I would feel like, wow, it's like there's some love for me. To a guy who's lost his father, it's like, fuck, man.
No, man, he's good at it. So he hits me with that and he goes, you won't have to work like you used to. Just get their acting chops up. Like run the promo class for me. And so I got to basically do acting class. And I didn't have to sit through the production meetings anymore, which were 4 hours long sometimes. And I would like sneak emails like, hey, send me your promo so I can work on it with wrestler X, Y, or Z. And so I would help the talent prep a little early. And then we would do these weirdo actor exercises to kind of help them develop their skills. The second time I went there was so much more fun than the first.
That was always my argument where for the anti-wrestling crowd, it's not real, or what do you want to watch these guys run around their underwear, all these weird things. I was like, do you watch movies and television with actors who are pretending to be characters?
Like, Law and Order, they didn't really shoot Jerry Orbach, right? Like, fuck out of here. George Zunza was fine at the end of that first step. Like, people trip out on that. And it's just because, and this is all human beings, right? We go with what we know. And if something isn't in that mainstream, we ridicule it till it goes away. Or if it makes money, we find a way to bring it into the fold like the Borg and kind of dilute it and take its personality and turn it into a sandwich. You know what I mean? So that's just what human beings do. We're all, hey, brother, we're all guilty of that. I'm just as guilty as any other human being. But that's just what we do. It's why I like the older stuff more than the Attitude Era. I go with what I know. I'm just a human being, man. And I acknowledge it's way more successful. Bigger stars, better matches, higher quality acting, better everything. But I like what I like.
The purity of your era.
That is,
I just like it.
You sell it really well though, because like you're saying things that I've said before, where it's like, look, I understand this isn't the best, but like what I like isn't the best. And people get mad at me all the time, like, you're just fucking lying. You're just trying to get attention. Like, no, I'm acknowledging it's not the best, but I like it. It's what holds a place in my heart.
People trip out on art from the dawn of time, right? And that's what wrestling is. It's the literal translation of blood, sweat, and tears on a literal fucking canvas. Okay? It's literally the definition of art. Now, I can walk through a museum. There's an entire period in Picasso's time called the Blue Period. I think it sucks. Deal with that, art world. I haven't been inspired by a single fucking painting that Picasso painted. By the way, even outside the Blue Period, I don't think they're that good. I look at Amadeo Modigliani and I go, yo, this guy's way better, bro. Post-Renaissance, crushing it. And guess who else thought it was better than Picasso? Fucking Picasso. Because Picasso, after he died, bought all of his artwork, made a speech about how great it was, and his paintings went from 8 francs a portrait to 350,000 all the way back then, post-World War II. So Picasso agrees with me too. It's just art.
How about Freddie Prinze Jr. cutting a promo for fucking Picasso right now?
I'll tell you what, Freddie. I was just on a train, right? And for the first time, I've been wanting to read Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, and I finally cracked it. And I read like 100 pages because it was so great reading something to someone who's so passionate and knowledgeable talk about something. I know nothing about food, but I couldn't stop reading Bourdain talk about it. I feel like that again right now, listening to you talk about wrestling.
Yeah. It's an art.
You are.
My mom was a chef, so I've always loved food, and I've read his book when it first came out. And he's one of those people who walked his own path and refused to conform to what people said was going to be necessary for him to succeed. And he said, fuck it. And that's not an easy thing to do. There's a level of fearlessness that's required to do that. People like Pam Grier back in the 70s, who's a living legend to this day. She did things her own way. A beautiful black woman in the 70s that everyone in this business tried to take advantage of, and not a single motherfucker could. She got him for every single dime. And Anthony Bourdain was the exact same way. Vince McMahon was the exact same way. I just interviewed The Miz on my podcast. I'll tell you this story. This is my favorite story. So when Brian Gewirtz was pitching Miz for world champion, he was kind enough to invite me into one of the rooms where they were going to talk about it. And this was when Miz won it in Atlanta, the first time he won the world championship. And everybody's, going back and forth. And it wasn't like an argument. It's just, here's the pros, here's the cons, here's what he's been doing for the company, all this stuff. And I had already worked with Miz a lot in like the acting class stuff, the promo stuff, things like that. I was around there while they were doing their dirt sheet stuff, him and Morrison. And I really tried to sell all this stuff that shouldn't have worked. And none of those dirt sheet segments should have worked. Not one of those videos should have worked. But him and John just did such an insane job of committing to the absurdity of it that they were awesome. And they were killing it with those things. And they were getting a lot of heat just making fun of people. And I always compared Miz to Johnny Utah, right, from Point Break. I'm like, and I literally said this in the meeting. I go, dude, he's Johnny fucking Utah, man. He'll jump out of a plane without a parachute knowing that it's the right thing to do for the fucking company. And Vince goes, what the hell is Johnny Utah?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, and again, it's like the RoboCop. I'm like, how do you not know? Point Break, man. Patrick Swayze, you haven't seen anything ever. So they're all pitching that idea. And I had The Miz on my podcast, and I was telling him that story, and it kind of led to the acting class thing we did. Which I talked about in like this, I think maybe the first or second episode of my podcast, where when I was in acting class, there was an exercise called repetition, which was two actors standing across from each other in front of all their peers. And we say one line and we're both locked into that line. So if we start this podcast with, hey, Freddie, I'm really excited to see you. I'm locked into that. I have to go, oh, hey, you're really excited to see me? Yeah, I'm really excited to see you. You're really excited to see me. And it has to go back and forth until someone changes the line. Whoever changes the line loses. And the point of the exercise is to show you there's a million correct ways to execute a line, so long as you commit to the moment and the feeling behind it. And it lets you fail in front of your peers and helps you be less afraid of failure. And the less afraid of failure you are, the less you'll fail. And on a live show, that is fucking critical. So go ahead.
A couple of, like the way you said, you're not afraid of criticism, not afraid to fail. I mean, that translates into like every business, whether it's wrestling, podcasting, acting, but nobody can do that shit these days. Nobody's, it's hard. Like a lot of people are not equipped to do that.
There's a lot of people that are born post social media, which is a humiliation format.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of fear and trepidation. But Miz, when I presented this exercise to the wrestlers, imagine if I tried to get you to do that in front of all your peers. Mm-hmm. You'd be more white than you are now. I would literally see your heart beat.
It's impossible, brother. I don't know. I need a tan.
You can get to Sheamus levels. You can get to Sheamus. You can get there. So nobody wants to do this. They're all horrified. And Miz stands up. He's like, I'll do it. And my eyes are like, oh my God, who's this? Yeah. So he comes up and I go, all right, man, I'll start you off. And he goes, no, I'll get us started. And now I'm like, oh, he's going to try something. So he looks me dead in the face and he goes, what the hell are you going to teach me about acting? And my stomach starts growling, right? Like a wolf. Because now I'm like, oh, you're dead. Like we're not in a wrestling ring. Like,
right, you're wrestle. In my arena, dude.
Like, it's your first try, right? I'm like, what the hell can I teach you about acting? He's like, yeah, what the hell can you? And we go back and forth and eventually changes the line. And everyone knew the rules and everyone goes, oh, you changed the line. Oh, you love. Now, it makes everyone, he challenged my philosophy, right? In the beginning of the promo class. And in beating him in that moment, it secures my philosophy to the other students. They're not students, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they go, hey, maybe this guy can teach me something because Miz is sick on the mic and he just lost. 12 years later, I'm interviewing Miz. And of course, because the only person who sells better than Miz is Ziggler, right? So Miz goes, oh yeah, man. He was like, I was already getting some love from Vince. He goes, I knew I'd been to acting classes before when I was out in LA. He goes, it's important. He says, what I told you, for me to challenge what you're saying and then lose because it puts you over for everybody else. And I literally was like, of course. Because who sells more than this guy? And he's not lying. It's not after the fact, oh, let me up myself. That's not who this guy is, man. Right. It was in the moment. He's such a company guy, dude. He's never afraid to do the job. He knows it's show business. He knows which word is bigger. He just gets it, man. Like so many people get in their own way. I did in my 20s when I was a successful actor. I let my ego get in my way a couple times. And the people who helped raise me had to check me. And trust me, martial arts always tells the truth. It will humble you real quick. So I learned at a young age, but Miz learned this on the fly. This is a guy who started on Real World. Think Theo Von, okay? If you're familiar with Theo Von, when he went into stand-up comedy, he was hated, okay? He was hated. Other stand-up comics were like, fuck you, man. You're some reality show MTV Road Rules guy. Kiss my ass, man. No, I know this story because I know the two comics that were nice to him his whole career before he blew up. I did a podcast with one of them for 2 years. So he was not welcome in the green room. He was not treated well. And his determination and his work ethic and his ability and just constant grinding and his fearlessness, doesn't care if he fails. Failure's not an option. There's only success. That's a very alpha personality. That's not me. I'm an omega. So it's very impressive to me when someone, like, you could tell if somebody, their personality by a compliment or criticism, right? Like if you tell an alpha a compliment or criticism, they've already decided how they feel. They don't care. Kobe Bryant, you're the best. Yeah, thanks.
No, I'm kidding.
Kobe Bryant, you'll never be Jordan. Yeah, whatever. He doesn't care. An actor, musicians, a lot of basketball players in this generation, beta personalities like the Kevin Durant, very susceptible to criticism. You suck. Oh yeah, I'm better than you'll ever be. Like there's no reason for that response. The omega personality just wants to know the motivation behind the compliment or the credit. Freddie, you're the best. He's got a script. What he wants me to read a script again. Freddie, you suck. How many movies did his girlfriend drag him to? Like that's where my brain goes, right? So the alpha, which is Miz, they never see failure as the option. And his willingness to literally just jump in, he's Johnny Utah, no parachute, and he's caught Patrick Swayze every single time. And Patrick's been dead a few years now, and he still catches his ass. Miz and Miz just got picked up for a third season. So I'm telling you, man, I have so much respect for that guy. And I know not everyone loves him, but to understand his process, his work ethic, and the fact that he had more speed bumps than your average bear, forget about it, man. He's a top dude for me.
He is the like we were at SummerSlam this year in Vegas, and we went to the after show, and we've interviewed Miz once or twice. Always via Zoom because I think we started doing interviews heavily during the pandemic, and he came up to me at the VIP post party. And he's like, what's up, man? Love the show. Love to come on again. And I was like, bro, how the fuck do you remember me? Like we met
man, bro.
For a half hour, but that's just like, it just seems to be the way he is. You're exactly as you're explaining. Like
that's how Rock was reportedly when he was there. I didn't work there when he was there, but on movie sets, my wife's done a movie with him. That's how Dwayne's always been too, man.
I'm on a crusade. I've been on a crusade my whole career to try to find somebody who can just tell me like one sort of bad story about Dwayne Johnson.
Okay, I can't.
Do you? Because I just want to hear like one time he didn't hold the door for me. He slammed it in my face by accident. I need something.
He hurt my grandma's feelings.
Okay,
I'm not trying to be funny. My God rest her soul. She was the person who introduced me to wrestling, and she took me to a match in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was a cage match. And I said, they get to wrestle in a cage? She goes, yeah, but that's just to keep them safe. They're not going to use it because the fans in Puerto Rico are insane. So it was just there to keep the wrestlers away from the fans. So I love my grandma very, very much. And my wife did a movie with Dwayne that nobody saw. It was like 8 hours long. And
what was that?
It was an indie film. I don't even remember the name, bro. I had to watch the whole thing before it was even edited, and it was like 4.5 hours long, and I wanted to jump off a roof. And I love my wife. I'd lie in court for my wife. I'd give her a fake passport and $500,000 and a country with no extradition if she needed it. I ain't trying to watch that shit. So anyway, I called my grandma, and like I always did, because I was a good grandson. And, hey, Grandma, how are you? And she was not well. And she was really upset. And she was also upset with my wife. And I said, Grandma, what's wrong? And she said, you tell Sarah that I don't want to speak to her again. I said, what do you mean? And she goes, she's working with Dwayne, with her accent, with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I said, yeah, they're making Southland Tales was the name of the movie. I said, yeah, they're making a movie called Southland Tales. And she goes, well, you tell her I'm not speaking to her anymore. I go, okay, what's going on? She goes, that son of a bitch turned his back on the people and he became the corporate champion and I'll never look at him again. And
that's great.
You have to understand, I'm sitting there as a grown man speaking to the woman who introduced me to wrestling, who I love very, very much. She's responsible for my love for wrestling. And I'm having to say, and I said these words, I said, Grandma, you and I both know that this isn't real. And she says, we don't have FaceTime or anything like that. So it's not eye to eye. She says right on the end of the sentence, she says, he had a choice. He chose corporate and turned his back on me and hung up the phone. And she died having never spoken to my wife ever the fuck again. You want to hear about what a jerk Dwayne The Rock Johnson is? All right. He's dead. He destroyed the relationship between my wife and my grandmother. Destroyed it.
Bro.
Tell me what a nice guy he is.
He dies at the end. Holy shit. That's spectacular.
I'm not even exaggerating. I don't have to exaggerate 1 second of that story.
I'm looking at Southland Tales, by the way. During a 3-day heat wave just before a huge 4th of July celebration, an action star stricken with amnesia meets up with a porn star who was developing her own reality TV project and a policeman who holds the key to a vast conspiracy. I'm in on that, listen, Freddie. I don't know about you, brother. I'm watching that one.
Yeah, but you didn't press the more button. The description is actually longer than the fucking film.
It is. It goes on and on and on. You're wrong. You're not wrong.
Chapter 14. The later years. But yeah, man, so he's a terrible guy.
You mentioned doing the podcast with Josh. Josh, man. I'm a big fan of Josh.
Josh Wolf.
Kind of a mentor of mine, and also and also I guess I want to say I'm one of Josh's victims because he just sends over absolutely atrocious videos all the time.
I made him stop doing that. I literally, a man-to-man comment. I was like, look, man, I'm sick of that nasty shit. I don't want to see it anymore. Don't send it to me.
John needs that. Freddie. John needs to have that speech.
Freddie, he's made me puke.
Literally puke.
Yeah. Just at work, I just throw up.
And if you tell him, that makes him laugh more. And he does that evil jerk cackle where it's like, ah! And you get more. So you have to have just a legit combo with him where it's like, look, man, I'll straight up eliminate you from I won't text you. I won't talk to you. We had this conversation on a live podcast where I was genuinely mad at him and he's laughing in my face the whole time. For an hour straight.
It's a little kid. It's telling a little kid that he can't do something. He's going to do it more. So
such a horrible human.
What you have to do is be like, Josh, man, I love that video of that guy who took a shit in that person's mouth, man. I loved it. And then he'll stop.
The only way to get him to stop. Yeah. Or you just got to have the real moment. Look, man, it's genuinely upsetting me. And then after he laughs, just keep that straight face on him and don't break.
Not fucking kidding. Unreal, man. Well, and so now, I feel like just in getting to talk to you for the first time, it sounds like you take things very seriously and work at them and learn them. You know what I mean? So now doing this podcast thing and compare that to acting and writing scripts and wrestling. And now you're in this world, in this realm where
I know how it is.
I mean, but I've never worked at it. I got into it. Say. Yeah. I got in on it early and used press record and go,
When you have passion for something, it doesn't feel like work. Well, is that Mark Twain that said that? Do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
But more importantly than that, I think when you have passion for something, you're hungry for knowledge about it. You're an active researcher. With the internet, it's transformed a lot of our brains into passive researchers. We wait for the information to come to us. And when something random on our Twitter stream or Instagram stream piques our interest, we engage with that, but we're not actively seeking out things that we have interest in as much as we used to. So with acting, I had interest in it after some time. You know, I was kind of forced into it by my family early on, and then found my love for it when I met Parker Posey and saw how much her life was about this. And that's when I was a young buck. But with it's all or nothing, man. Like I was talking about Miz. Maybe I like that type of personality because it's impressive to me. So I try to emulate it because it's not a natural choice for me. I'm not jumping out of a plane without a parachute. Mm-hmm. I'm not Johnny Utah. I'm the guy that like got shot in the stomach and he's like, he's dying near the end. He's like, oh, we're still going to make it. Are we going to make it? I'm that guy. So I'm like, I'll jump, but the parachute is on the back. Yeah. So, those type of people impress me. That type of attitude impresses me. So when I try something new, and I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had to try many new things because I've been successful with the things I've tried. Mm-hmm. So when I do try something new, I try to emulate that all in kind of philosophy. So with Josh, he did all the heavy lifting on that. And I really was just there for the ride. I was Kieran Culkin in what was that movie? The Mighty, when he's on Eldon Hanson's shoulders, the whole movie, whatever that was called. Yeah. And it was a remake, but you know what I mean? I was Kieran. And with this, I have to do research. I go back through like my old journals that I kept when I worked at WWE to make sure I have a few things right and things like that. Mm-hmm. I kept it. My wife told me, she was like, you should keep a journal while you work there. And so there's a bunch of weird random thoughts and things in there. I do research.
Fucking wish I journaled like my time at Barstool my whole life because there's just always like stories and shit that I'm like, I wish I remembered that time or that joke or whatever.
This, actually, like, there's a way you did. Like, even if Freddie didn't keep that journal, I feel like you could go back and read the promos you wrote and like kind of remember what you're doing. You can go back and read the blogs, like remember where you were at in that.
It's like a living record of it. Yeah.
Sometimes people send me something. I'm like, man, I don't think I wrote that. I think that was Angelo. Or I thought I've written something and my buddy texted me. He's like, you asshole, I wrote that. I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry.
You're right. I've definitely done that too. I'm like, like this.
Look, when I worked there, there were things you had to do to unwind at the end of the day that eliminate your memory. And I did a lot of that. So, I made a few mistakes here and there.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we appreciate the time. The show's WW Freddie, Wrestling with Freddie from iHeartMedia's Cultura Network. So everybody take a look at that. And we appreciate it, man. Looking forward to do it in person one time.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, this pandemic shit is just, I know I'm not trying to crap on it. Like I'm a responsible dude. I'm not like anti-science, but I'm so sick of this shit, man. Like
fucking sick of it, dude.
I'm so sick of this shit. I saw a thing on Real Sports 15 years ago about a stupid school that took away high fives and hugs because they didn't think contact was that. And I'm watching this like, this is the dumbest shit. This is the worst school I've ever seen. All they're raising a bunch of, and now that's literally my life. Like I'm doing the Japanese bow when I meet people, man. I'm full on samurai, dude. I'm like, if they bow, I bow again. Like the Japanese, they always give you that extra bow. Like I try to do that to respect the culture, but it's becoming my life, man. It's weird.
It's crazy, dude. All right, brother. We'll talk to you. Have a good one.
Peace.
Hey, bro.
If you're watching on YouTube, click here to subscribe so that you get all the new episodes as they come out. And John, what should they click if they want notifications? Make sure you click thumbs up for the like, hit that bell icon.